Hey folks, Jessica here. So today I am going to cover one of the most common questions I get asked in Granblue, which is whether or not a particular weapon is any good for a particular grid or not. The answer is inevitably it's complicated. It really depends on what other weapons you're running, what summons, what class you are. There's a ton of things to factor in. The way I found to get the most accurate answer is to use a damage calculator. So today we're going to be going over the basic setup of Motocal, which is my favorite damage calculator. And once you get this thing set up, you can pretty much find out the answer to any weapon grid question yourself. I'll put a link in the description down below, so if you want to check it out for yourself, go ahead and jump down there, and we're going to hop right in. Gotta minimize myself so you can focus on the calculator. Motocal is a very powerful tool. It can process a lot of data and handle pretty much any variable you can think of in regards to Granblue. But with all that power comes a lot of setup. It is a bear to set up. So I'm going to go over the basic setup of it for you, but also know that you can save your setup after you've done it once, so you don't have to do this again every single time. So the first thing it's going to ask you is what rank you are. In my case, 142. I should add that I'm going to be using this grid for this calculation. This is my fire grid. It's just a free-to-play Agni grid. MOB Agni, so 120% normal modifier. So yeah, 142 Berserker. Master bonus attack. If you haven't noticed, when you hit 20 in any class, it gives all your classes a bonus. The bonus depends on what class you're getting to 20. That's all that master attack bonus is, the total of that. The maximum you can get right now if you max out all the relevant classes is 18, so 18% is what we're going to enter. Same thing for master HP bonus, 15%. Ratio HP, remain ratio HP is pretty much just for enmity weapons and stamina weapons, weapons that scale damage based on how much health you have. You can mess around the elements if you want. I'm just going to leave it as the default, which is advantageous, fire versus wind. Zenith perks, or as the tool puts it, Zenith parks, are just your EMP skills for that for your main character. So 3000 attack, 1000 HP. Weapon 1, weapon 2 are just your weapon mastery. Same thing, EMP. And then that's all the stuff you really need to enter. You can mess around with some of these advanced settings if you want. Like, for example, if you want to simulate the fact that you have an Elysian buff, then you might tinker with the double attack, triple attack rating. It is super important to remember that the calculations it's doing with the setup I'm putting here is without buffs. So next field is summons. I'm going to do... so I should mention this because this could trip somebody up. Magna means Magna, obviously. Element means elemental bonus, so like Shiva, for example, is 140% elemental. But you see there's no primal listed. That's because primal is Zeus. So if you're looking for primal, so like Hades or Agni or whatever, the drop-down you want is Zeus. So 120% Zeus, 140% Agni to simulate, sorry, 140% fire to represent Shiva as our backup. Total attack and total HP, they are just these fields up here. The total attack for all your summons and the total HP for all your summons. And then again, that's all you really need to enter. You can mess with other fields you want, but I'm not going to, just to keep this one brief. A thing to note is you can add another pair of summons down here if you want, or even more than that if you want, in case you want to compare like which summons work better with your particular grid. So whereas I have Agni Shiva up top, I have double Agni down here, and this table down here will give me the results for double Agni. So, character. I don't usually mess with this since I don't really need information that granular most of the time, but if you want to find out what your specific character is going to be doing with your grid, you can go ahead and do that. You just click the name field, and it will give you a pop-up, and select the character you want, and it will input all the data that's relevant. So let's do Yule and, I don't know, Sturm, I guess. Now this is where you're going to be doing the lion's share of entry. This is your weapons. So this is essentially your grid. All these fields I've gone ahead and filled out, but I'll walk you through them. When you want to add a weapon, so if you hit add, it'll drop, you'll add another row on the bottom, hit name, and it'll pop this up. You can filter for the element you want, and I'm going to go ahead and add a Crimson Finger, since this is actually a relevant question for me. There you go. Add one. You can add any number of them you want. Do know that it assumes that you're using an FLB version if it exists, and that it is fully leveled up and fully skilled. If you don't have a fully skilled or fully leveled weapon, for some reason, you can modify these fields to put in exactly what you have. This is also super important if you're trying to do calculations with a weapon that's just come out. Very often Motocal won't have the particular weapon in their database for like a couple weeks after the weapon's released. So using these fields, you can just manually enter in a weapon. Use the skill drop down here to put down whatever skills it has. So other important fields. As you can see, there's a minimum and maximum field. If you want to force this thing to use a specific weapon, regardless of whether or not it's the most efficient, that's what minimum's for. So, example I like to use is if you're playing Elysian, you probably want a harp. I mean, you could use a dagger, I guess, but you want a harp. So the thing is, Mobius Strip, while it is a harp, is never going to be the best weapon for the damage calculation, unfortunately. So it's just gonna, the thing is always gonna recommend 0 Mobius Strip. So the way you get around that is you set the minimum to 1, and now it will force Mobius Strip into the setup. So if you're playing Elysian, you're fine now because it will guarantee that you at least have a harp, even though that's not the best damage combination. Maximum is simply how many how many total of the weapon you can have. So if you had like, I don't know, like 5 Mobius strips, rip, you can set it to 5, and then it will add up to 5. I can give you an example of where that becomes relevant right now. Eratocrates, or Eratonius, is Athena's spear. I have 3 in here because 3 is what I have, but if I were to set it to 5, this will try and set it to 5 spears because it calculates that 5 of them will be the best damage possible. Now, that might make you raise an eyebrow right off the top of your head because 5 Athena spears seems like a lot. Do, again, remember that's without buffs. So some of the stats are going to be skewed if you're running like an Elysian buff. Another thing, and this is kind of a cool thing about Motocal, is you notice up here when it is Primal Elemental, it recommends 5 of those. If you scroll down to double Agni, double Primal, it only recommends 3. And this is where Motocal can catch you with some information that you just might not realize. I mean, maybe you did realize this, but it's not super obvious. The reason it only wants 3 down here is because Eratonius, it's hard to say, has a Trium modifier, which is a normal modifier. And since you're only running 1 Agni up here, you're only getting 1 bonus to that modifier. So it takes more of these things to hit what it feels is the ideal double attack, triple attack. But since you're running double Agni down here, you get a bigger boost on that spear, a bigger boost on the Trium, so it takes less of them to hit the ideal double attack, triple attack. So yeah, that's just an example of Motocal doing some good calculations for you. So last thing to note when you're messing around with this, I'm just going to say I have 9 Crimson Fingers. Must be nice, right? Now, you would think Crimson Finger is awesome. It is the bomb diggity. it is one of the best fire weapons. And you'd be right. But for some reason, it doesn't want more than 3 up here. And that seems wrong, right? Well, do remember that's with 100% HP. So you're not actually getting the enmity bonus right now. if you drop this to, say, 70% HP, it's gonna want 4. And then if you drop this down to 1% HP, it's gonna want 5. And the reason for this is, of course, you're getting more damage when your HP is lower because these are enmity weapons. So keep that in mind when you're trying to do like your Gisla grid or your Crimson Finger grid, or if you're messing around with stamina weapons. So that is pretty much all you need to know for setting them up. As you can see, it gives you a list, a ranked list of the different combinations it can give you based on the weapons you've inputted. And for example, this first one only runs 1 Colossus Cane and runs 3 Crimson Fingers. That is a better setup than using 2 Colossus Canes and 2 Crimson Fingers, as you can see down here, which is better than, you know, the higher up it is, the better it is. So this will answer pretty much any questions you got as to whether or not a weapon is worth it to add. So once you've done all the setup, you can hit save over here. You can either save to browser, which puts in this browser list, or you can save to server, which will give you a nice handy link, which you can bookmark, and you can just only start there when you want to mess with the grid again, instead of having to start from the beginning. So that's pretty much all you need to know about Motocal. There are more complicated things you can look at if you're really interested. Like, as you can see, there's a bunch of drop downs up here. You can do like character double attack, triple attack, and it will give you the double attack, triple attack rates for specific characters. That stuff is relevant, but we're not gonna get into it. They're pretty self-explanatory, so you can mess around with them as you see fit. So yeah, in conclusion, Motocal is a really powerful tool that will give you pretty definite answers as to what is ideal. Do remember there are going to be some corner cases where Motocal is wrong. It's not going to factor in things like, so it recommended 5 Athena spheres. That is, while that does have Trium, which is really good, that is also a 50% cut to each character's HP, which is a significant HP cut. So it's not going to, like, you're the one who has to decide whether or not that HP cut is worth it to you. This calculator won't do that calculation for you, because that one's really just preference. The other thing to note is, again, this is without buffs. If you want to check what it's like with, say, an Elysian buff, which is, well, just the most common one that's going to be relevant for this, you can manually change the statistics to reflect that. So some of your actual, like, depending on what class you're running and what buffs you have, some of the numbers might actually be different than what Motocal puts in this setup. So yeah, if you have any more questions about about your grid, first try Motocal, and you know, if you still have questions, go ahead and post down below and I'll try and answer them. If you got any questions about how Motocal is set up, or you're having trouble setting up, just go ahead and ask down below. I'll try and answer as best I can, or maybe someone else will. But yeah, definitely check this out. I love this tool. It's just so much useful data. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe. That super helps me out. If you want to be a champ, you can go ahead and follow my Twitter, or take a look at my Patreon, which are also in the description down below. That really, really, really helps me out, and I will love you forever. Anyways, until next time, love you guys. Bye.